Okay, cool. Got all my little controls and stuff. How's everyone doing today? Doing good? All right, cool. Got some thumbs up. Awesome. It's okay if you're not doing well. Also, everyone's kind of in their own spot right now, so totally get it if everyone's just like, I'm gonna participate in the chat. So understood. Yeah, we'll get started. We'll probably get started too after because there's always one or two people fighting with Zoom. It's a pretty good best practice. But yeah, just to kind of give you an idea of what we're going to talk about today. We're talking about blended classrooms, the culture of education, how we plan out our lessons and pods. It's not an acronym. It's just the idea of groups. So we'll talk about this stuff today. This is the day when we're really going to get into what is it to be an actual teacher. So we're going to do some participatory stuff. I see everybody's kind of got their cameras off, and that's totally fine. I have been there when you are just done with the act of performatively listening. So, but do participate in the chat. Where I'm going to ask a bunch of different questions and have you write stuff down. So, try not to tune out entirely, but yeah, don't worry about putting your camera on. I know a lot of people are in a lot of Zooms, getting Zoom fatigue. So. Normally with an online course, I'd be like, everybody turn on your camera, but I think everyone's in too many Zooms right now. So you don't have to turn on any cameras. Cool. Let's see. I don't need to do breakout rooms or anything. So. All right. Go ahead and start the recording. Oh, I gotta maybe. I think I have to sign in real fast. Hold on. All right. Hey, everyone. If you're just getting in, we're going to start probably about 1 or 2 minutes after. Here we go. Cool. Then I have to switch my Zoom account because I don't technically have host privileges. So I'm just going to do that. Do it. All right. Now can I do host or do recording? Okay. Yeah, okay, so we're recording now. Good. All right, we'll go ahead and get started in about 2 minutes. Just want to give everybody a chance to actually get in to the room and everything. So this is what we're going over today. I know a number of you have joined since I just said this. So we're going to go over actually what it is to teach and facilitate today. It's going to be a participatory session, so be ready to talk in the chat. You don't have to turn on your camera. I know we all have Zoom fatigue, and like Zoom fatigue is for real. So don't worry about, showing your face. But please do be ready to chat in the Zoom chat, ask questions, things like that. I'm also going to ask a bunch of questions and take a moment to let you answer. So just be ready for that kind of thing going on. I usually like to start an online class like 1 or 2 minutes late because of video call bingo. There's always something going on, something breaking. So I want to give everybody a chance to, oh no, it's not working. Oh no, I don't have my login. Oh, I have to reinstall or update or it won't work. Something's happening for someone somewhere. So yeah, so that's what we're going over today though. You might have also noticed that I've added a week 4 out here. We didn't really have this before. I kind of moved all of the remote stuff over here to August 5th and 6th. We're going to talk about remote social learning, what it is to build a remote social culture. We're going to talk about Zoom, and we're also going to talk about Slack culture, all kinds of remote stuff. But I just moved it all into one big long session because it's kind of all related. And I wanted to do it right before we actually start. So I've added a fourth week to our training, and that's going to be on August 5th and 6th. So I'll talk a little bit about remote stuff and how it's a little different today when we talk about classroom culture and stuff like that. But we'll talk over like how do we use Zoom, how do breakout rooms actually work. We'll practice. You'll get to be a Zoom host so that you can click all the right buttons, and it's always helpful to have gotten to be a host one time with Zoom before you try to go run and be a host. So we'll make sure you get a chance to practice. So that's the plan. That's going to be August 5th and 6th. If you absolutely cannot make August 5th or 6th, and it's one or the other, you don't have to come to both. But if you can't make either of these, reach out to Karen and she'll help like get another session for everybody who totally couldn't make it. Like if you have a final or something like that, just let us know and we'll figure it out. We want to get you that practice. It's about 6:03, so it's really probably time to go ahead and get started. So today, again, we're going to talk for just a second about the task tracker tasks, the leaderboard. I'm going to show you how you can see how many people have signed up for your university. And then we're really going to dig into facilitation and classroom techniques. I'm going to show you this process that we use here at CodePath. The way that all of our sessions are designed is called I do, we do, you do. So it's kind of an idea. That's how the labs work. So we'll go over that, and then we're also going to talk about pods. I'll give you a reading assignment at the end. Don't worry, it's cool. It's just this link here about like our pedagogy. So, and then we'll do a survey. So yeah. So just to kind of go ahead and bulldoze on through, let's just take 5 minutes and update the task tracker. Maybe you did all this stuff. Oh no, I'm not logged in. Why don't I have access? Well, anyway, you should have access to the task trackers. Yeah, here we go. I got the iOS task tracker. So just, I know that some of you have done some of these things. You've done some of the marketing things in the playbook. You've attended some of these things. So let's just take a minute, go ahead and update the task tracker. If you haven't seen the task tracker before, or if you don't have the link handy, it's right here on the slide, and I'll go ahead and drop that in the Zoom group chat. So just take the next 2 or 3 minutes and make sure to note any task tracker tasks that you are done with. Let's see, pretty sure this is the right link. I don't have access for some reason to the cybersecurity one. Here's the link to that one. But I have those other two, so. I don't have access to like change the sheet. So if you don't have access to the task tracker, copy link, go ahead and reach out to support@codepath.org and we'll fix it. I don't have the permissions, but the ops team will help out there. Very helpful. So yeah, just go ahead and take a few minutes, review your tasks. If your campus is hedging its bets on whether it will open, and it's not saying whether it will open or not, and so you don't know, I would go ahead and go through the exercise of trying to book a classroom. Reach out, to your campus. Even if every single class gets canceled right before, or turned remote right before because the numbers haven't changed, it's worth it to have gone through and gotten the classroom set up. So yeah, if your schools still haven't given you the word, book a classroom just in case. I don't think that we'll be getting together, but just having a classroom sort of on the books makes it a little bit more of an official class. So if you're for credit, they'll have assigned you a classroom. Don't worry about it. Cool. And then if I could just get a thumbs up in the participants window for those of you who are done updating the task tracker. Give me a thumbs up. Awesome. Cool. All right. Take another minute here or so. And just to reiterate that there are marketing office hours in the Tech Fellows Fall 2020 channel. I'll drop a link to that that actual Slack channel. Let's see, Vic and Emily are running these really awesome office hours. They'll talk about marketing with you. So go ahead and reach out to them if you are having trouble with any of the marketing goals, or if you're unclear on some of the goals. Some of the goals are a little different this time around, and so there may be some documentation here or there that's confusing. Vic and Emily know everything that's up with minimum number of participants and how that stuff is going to work. So yeah, reach out to them if you are in need of any assistance. I wanted to go ahead and also show you, like, if you are working on doing signups and you are working on these marketing initiatives, we have these leaderboards, so you can kind of track the total number of applications. We are tracking applications by university, so you can kind of see the number of people who've applied. This is the cybersecurity course leaderboard. There's a link to all of the different leaderboards here. So here's iOS. We've got 361. Whoa. And so, yeah, we've got a remote university. Yeah, that's iOS, and then Android is what I haven't seen Androids today. 306, nice. So we're gonna have a huge remote cohort, huge. So if you're participating in that, it's gonna be the biggest cohort we have ever run. We will need your help really bad. So thank you for showing up. Okay, so just to kind of give you those, links, you now have the link to the deck, so you have the links to the leaderboards, and you can kind of see, cybersecurity. We have to beat iOS and Android, so so that I win and I get to brag about it to Tim and Nathan. So help me win the numbers game. Cool. So that's kind of how you know what levels y'all are at. So the next phase, I just wanted to kind of remind you, we're going to talk about facilitation and classroom techniques. So the reason this is called facilitator training is the first time you ever do this, we sort of think of you as more of a facilitator. And a facilitator is somebody to help us make the course easier for all of the students. That's the goal of you as a tech fellow, right? So a lot of times we think of professors and we think of Professor McGonagall, I'm Professor McGonagall, if anyone wanted to know. Usually, like, we get into this situation where we've got a lecture and it's just like not a good feeling. And that's because we don't want you to think of yourselves as somebody who's got to show up and be a wizard, right? You don't have to be a wizard to help your classmates, right? We all know, like, we've all taken that class where there was just that one student in the class who just knew everything, basically. And when you didn't want to ask the teacher, you went and you asked that one student who helped you and basically made it so that you passed the class. You are that student for this class, right? Only rather than having an intimidating wizard stand in front of the class and go, here are complicated mathematical symbols, okay, bye, and then, like, the students work together to figure it out, we're just having the student leader run the class and talk about figuring out the labs and figuring out the problems. So we don't need you to, land a perfect lecture every single time. What we need you to do is be the student advocate. So just to kind of get some thinking, get the wheels turning, what I want you to do is take 2 minutes and start typing in Zoom chat, but don't hit enter yet. Just type out what's unique about the role of a professor and what's unique about the role of a facilitator. What's different between those two? what attributes make an awesome professor and what attributes make a great facilitator. So let's just write this out. 2 minutes. So at 6:14, we'll hit enter. Just think about it. Think about your own experiences too. It's okay if you hit enter, don't worry. You can hit enter as you're typing. It's okay. Cool. Cool. All right. Yeah. So it sounds like we got some really good answers. Largely, the consensus is the professor is an expert already. The professor just knows and is just spouting out knowledge, and everyone's just trying to write it down, right? But then a facilitator is not intimidating and knows enough to get through the class, knows the labs, knows the answers, and can succeed in the class. It's probably a great example that everyone else is following, but isn't, being held to just knowing every single little detail about every single little thing down cold, right? And that's your role, right? I mean, that vision of that student that is always helpful to everyone in the class, and that student gets asked the questions. That's your role. So it sounds like you all have a pretty good handle on what that is. So I'm going to jump into presentation mode, and then let's do a do or don't. We're going to do one at a time, and I just want you to type do or don't in the chat. So, should we gather feedback during class? Do or don't? Yes, yeah, pretty overwhelming yes. Do gather feedback during the class. And feedback is more than just, it's more than just, did you like the class? It's stuff like this, like typing in the Zoom chat, feedback that people are listening and paying attention. Should you always stick to the plan no matter what? Do or don't? Pretty common. Yeah. Don't stick to the plan no matter what. Try to be adaptable. You made the plan because you know what they need to know, but if, for instance, they're all behind or they're all stuck on the last lab, probably time to just review the last lab instead of moving on. We didn't stick to the plan no matter what this spring, so we've all kind of learned this lesson, right? So what about an authoritative presence? Should you maintain an authoritative presence? Do or don't? Yeah. I mean, part of the reason why they can talk to you is because you're not like this perfect oracle of knowledge who is judging them, right? coming to an understanding together is actually like what you do as an engineer. And so you're really helping them to understand how to act in the real world. So should you get personal with students? Should you know what's going on in their lives? Should, you talk about what's going on in your lives? Do or don't? Looks like we got a lot of do's. Yeah. And yeah, just to level set, sometimes people come from teaching cultures where teachers are supposed to be this, reserved person and you don't really know anything about them. But you represent our students, right? You were once students and now you're helping our students. And so you represent them much better. So please be friends with people, develop relationships. That's what you're here to do. Should we let extended silences happen? Do or don't? Everybody says no to this. Oh, wait, no, we got some do's. So earlier in the presentation, we did an extended silence so that everybody could update their, their spreadsheets. Every time I say do or don't, we have to have an extended silence so people can answer. If you ask a question, like, think about the best professor you ever had. That's how many seconds it really takes to have somebody think about, oh, I had a couple of good ones. Oh, well, yeah, no, Dr. What's her face? Like, she was really cool. Yeah, okay. It takes a second. So those extended silences are not your brain falling out of your head. You didn't forget your line. You're giving your students time to absorb what you said. So are we going to discuss things at an advanced technical level? Yes or no? Do or don't? And it's hard. It's got some nuance, right? What does that even really mean? There's a lot of details in computer science. You don't always need to, like, for example, if you're teaching them how to send a network request, you don't have to teach them, about the whole HTTP response protocol and also TCP IP and also DNS. Like, you don't have to do all that. Try to scope what you're talking about to what they need in order to solve the problem. And you will get an understanding of what background your students have based on what they turn in. So don't over explain because you lose people, right? The minute you start talking, you got about 2 or 3 minutes before attention starts wandering. So if it's going to take a lot of words to explain, write it for sure. Cool. What about using class time as quiet study time? Do or don't? So I understand the impulse of this. It is tempting to basically tell students, let's set aside time to focus on reading this thing and learning it. However, the thing that is scarce is everybody is online together at the same time. So extended silences are fine, but don't use the class time as quiet study time because realistically, there's a lot of material to get through and they will go to breakout rooms for their labs, so there will be time for them to do stuff. But if you don't have a presentation ready and it's like coming up, let us know if you need help or anything. Even if everybody's kind of behind, right, they'll still get time in the labs. You can just change what you cover. But just always take about 20 minutes to arm students with a little bit more, material. So should we use most of the class time then instead for the presentation? Do or don't? We are split on this. We are totally split. So I will show you kind of how the presentation breaks down. one thing, it's hard to hear this, I think, but students don't sign up to hear you talk, right? They sign up to hack, man. Like that's what they want to do. They want to hack. And you're showing them something, but they didn't come for a 2-hour video, right? Nobody really wants to watch a 2-hour video that they can't speed up, you know? So if the presentation isn't super active, you'll lose people, right? Like if I had just read this out loud, I would lose everyone in this room very quickly. You would check out, everybody would turn off their cameras, you would maybe start reading another thing because it just, I speak at a normal speed and that's slow. So yeah, like the class time, the beginning of it, you'll show people what it is that they're doing, but they do need time to work in groups. So usually it's about 20 minutes of covering stuff, maybe 10 minutes of like answering questions, and then it's breakout room time. So should we give more time for group work than for presenting the material? Do or don't? Cool. That was a great check for understanding. So everybody was sort of split on this, but now y'all are all due. So I want to call that out actually as something, you know, teaching about teaching, it's very meta. So it's hard to always like, I could just talk to you and tell you a bunch of things, but really it's about critically thinking about what is the classroom experience. So paying attention to this experience, what we are doing right now, how I'm asking you a question, everyone's typing it into the Zoom chat. When you do that, it's a lot more active. People are doing more critical thinking. They're thinking about something, they're doing something, and then they're listening for the next cue. So what we just did there is I did a check for understanding. Should we use most of the scheduled class time for the presentation? Then y'all said a varying range of things. I corrected the assumption and then asked the same question again, but in a different way. And everybody's response changed. So that is called a check for understanding, and it serves a lot of purposes. It keeps people with you. It keeps your presentation active. It keeps people thinking and in the critical thinking space. And it allows you to know if people are following and if they're actually getting the information that you're putting out. If they're picking up what you're putting down. So that's what we just did there. Was we took a bunch of material, like I could just say, should we, like, we always want to gather feedback during class and always don't stick to your plan. You know, I could have just said those things, but asking the question is just a fundamentally different interaction with these ideas. Last thing, usually people are split on this. Should we allow students to share their solutions to like errors and problems they come up with? Do or don't? All right, y'all are CodePath crew, you know. Yeah, it's all about collaboration and making sure that we're all working together on and solving, you know, getting through the challenges, not inventing the challenges with no help, right? So great, everybody's on thing. So that's what we did there. We just checked for understanding. By phrasing these as do's or don't questions and going through it together, not only did we keep everybody on task, but also we created a classroom environment where like some people said no to some of the ones that I say yes to. And what that does is it means like, okay, not everybody has every answer right off the top of their head. And it creates a sense of safety. I don't remember who was wrong, right? That's not what's important. The importance is that we're engaging with the material and having a conversation and feeling okay, like we can put our answers out there. If I hadn't created a good environment, if I weren't kind of casual when everybody came in and all that, I would probably just see a lot less people answering. Maybe 4 or 5 people would have answered instead of the, you know, near to 15 or so people who were answering generally. So that's how you can kind of tell if you're getting, you know, checking for understanding and you're keeping people engaged. Fewer or more people will type, you know, or engage with the thing that you're asking. So yeah, so to kind of like bring that home, like questions that students ask themselves when they come into your classroom. Why am I here right now? Why did I have to come to this Zoom chat? Why did you bring me here? Why did you make me show up at this time instead of watching it on my own on my own time like I totally would have? Why do I need to be in the room or in the Zoom for this? Why can't I do this on my own? What is the point of today? Why, you know? And a lot of times students don't know these things. Even if you write it out, even if you say it in the channel, like tonight, this is what we're going over. They don't know what that is going to look like. So over communicating in the moment is really critical. Students are also going to ask themselves this question: is this worth coming in for? Was this worth showing up for? You asked yourself this tonight: do I have to go to that? There's another one tomorrow. Maybe I could go tomorrow. Well, no, I'll go tonight and I'll get it over with. But you asked yourself, didn't you? Do I have to come? Can I skip it? So everyone is asking themselves those, especially with Zoom fatigue. Who's got Zoom fatigue? Like, well, me, I have it. So, you know, when they're coming in, don't make them come in for a video that you could have made it as a video, right? Don't just talk the whole time. Keep them engaged. This is really the question on everybody's mind at every second for the whole training. When are we going to do stuff? I came here to hack. I came here to learn cybersecurity. I came here to make an app. Like, what are you talking about? You know, you're just showing me the IDE right now. Or you're just talking about lists. Are you just talking about some community you know about? Blah. You know, when sometimes people get, you know, a little overwhelmed by having to listen to people talk a lot about stuff. So that's why we try to keep our lectures really tight and interactive and really related to what it is that we're covering. So, you know, let's just think about this. Which is more memorable, a snippet of text or a discussion? And how do you know when it's time to participate in class versus just listening? Write your answers in the chat. Just take like 90 seconds, think about it. Hit enter when you're ready. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm getting, you know, yeah, discussion is more memorable. Because you can remember it. You can remember saying things. You can remember thinking, formulating, wondering about the people in the room and what are they going to think when I say these things. Those are all very impression making experiences, right? Well, how do you know when it's time to participate? What made you aware that you were supposed to do something versus just waiting for me to start talking again? Something becomes unclear when a question is asked. There you go, Lapreet saw it, right answers in Zoom chat, right? When an activity is being introduced, silence is a big cue. Yeah, if I had just gone, how do we know? How do we know when it's time to participate in class versus just listening? How do you know? How do you know? How do you know? How do you know? Does anyone know? How do you know? How do you know? Does anyone know? That doesn't really, you know, it doesn't really make you want to like, okay, I'll answer, right? So a lot of cues. We have to use multiple cues because silence is weird, right? If you were looking away and you weren't kind of paying attention for a second and then it's quiet, Oh, we're doing something. Oh, there's something on the slide. Okay, I'm typing, right? So you can bring people back with that. Writing down what are we doing concretely in words on the slides. That's a huge one. Students are really engaged when they're communicating. Communicating is an activity that generates memories. Reading text will help your mind get in a state where you understand something and you can model it, but you will remember a conversation better than you will remember reading something. So you can remember conversations you had when you were like 17, but can you remember any book that you read when you were 17? Even one? You kind of remember the plot of that one that you liked, right? So yeah. So, there's a lot of tools for engaging the classroom. I'm just going to talk about them for a second. Posting it, that's what I'm talking about here. When I say 90 seconds, write your answers in the Zoom chat. Post it. What are we doing today? Post it on the screen. That's what I mean. Use your slide decks, use a whiteboard, use the discussion system. If you're trying to get students engaged, use the Slackbot bounty system. I'll go over that a little bit more later in the year, but there's a lot of ways to engage students. If you got bored students, tighten up those lectures, shorten them up, work the clock. What do I mean by work the clock? When I say 90 seconds, we're going to do this for 90 seconds. When I say something like, just say it right away. Type it in the Zoom chat. When I say 2 minutes, write your answers in the Zoom chat and give you an expectation. How long are we going to be typing this? Is it a 40-minute typing this or a 1-minute typing this, right? So work the clock when you got bored students. Also, pod leadership. Sometimes students are bored because they're a little bit more advanced in the material. Give them an opportunity to practice leading. That will help them stay engaged. If what their goal is really more to have everybody else pass because they know they're going to be fine, that's far more engaging and interesting as a problem if they're not engaged. The other tool for bored students is they want to go do the labs. Let them go to the labs. It's always okay to do something like open up breakout rooms before you start answering questions. So if they're bored to tears and they're done with you talking, they can go get started on the lab while you answer questions for anybody else. If you've got students who just aren't responding, or if you've got a pod that's kind of weird, and I'll talk about what a pod is, it's just a group, do a 1-on-4 with those pods, basically. Meet with them in a smaller group setting. There's 22 people in this room right now, and that's too big of a room for having a frank discussion about struggles. After about 7 people, it gets to be really hard for humans to be vulnerable unless they know all the other people in that room, right? So if you got people who are dropping off, have a 1-on-4 with them. Practice some active listening. And then another tool is the Slack channel, right? Having people write what they're doing every day in the Slack channel. We'll cover a little bit more of that in a bit. The last thing, we kind of talked about this, we've touched on it a few times, anxious and distressed students. What they need is they need guides, they need walkthroughs, they need stuff so they can struggle on their own time, but they also need you to excavate error. So when we did the do's and don'ts, some people said no's and some people said yeses. And we didn't go back and say, you said no, but you should have said yes. What we did is we just had people answer, and everybody saw that other people had different ideas maybe than them, right? Or the same idea, maybe they said don't and they weren't sure, and someone else said don't, so they were like, oh yeah, okay, so I'm gonna go with don't. So excavating error is letting people make mistakes and thinking of mistakes, like showing mistakes as it's like a balm for anxiety, right? It's like it helps people with psychological safety. and it really helps us to connect as a group of learners rather than I'm learning and everyone else already knows this, that feeling of imposter syndrome. So just anytime anyone has a bug or a problem, or if you have a bug or a problem, it's gold to show it. Show that you had a bug, show that you struggled with something, show that that person who's always turning things in faster than everyone else had an issue. And that helps students who are struggling but don't want to share that they're struggling to do that more. So these are our main like techniques for these big categories of problem, right? And we'll talk a little bit about it, but I've also linked in the course portal the bunch of books and a bunch of resources. So you can kind of like read back over it some more if you'd like. So we're going to transition now into kind of what does a session look like, right? This is the I do, we do, you do section. So generally they're 90 minutes, right? We have a 10-minute, hey, how was everyone's weekends? Did y'all get that thing done? It looks like 3 of you had a hard time turning it in. You know, you're talking about whatever happened with the last lab and what did we learn, right? And then you get about 20 minutes to talk about the topic. So if you're covering SQL injection, you get talk about what a select statement is, show a couple of SQL injection examples. That's all you get, 20 minutes. And then you got to get students doing things for the bulk of the time. So overall, you're talking for about 30 minutes in total, and then they're doing stuff together for most of the time. That's because they came here to hack, right? That's why we're here. Bringing everyone back together at the end is important, especially if you have like a mid-course survey, because setting aside time for students to do stuff like fill out the survey, turn something in, see the way that you submit a Git or submit a gist, or how do you, push up the repo for this week or whatever it is. So leaving those 10 minutes at the end is pretty crucial, but really the lab is the most critical part of this. If they don't get a chance to practice with the material, them doing it on their own is going to be really hard. So the structure of I do, we do, you do is basically I do it, I show you how to do it, then we do it together, right? And that's the lab. They're doing the lab, whatever it is that the lab is, and they're doing it together, and you're there to help if they need help. But then eventually you hand off to you do, right? And it's like they're doing group work as the assignment kind of on their own. Of course, it varies from class to class. Sometimes the group work is working on a big, app. Sometimes the group work is we're a hacking team and we're trying to get through the particular, CTF. But they're doing this more on their own outside of the classroom. The goal of the sessions that everybody has to show up on Zoom together at the same time is to have them do something that you just showed them, where they actually get to like type it out and try it out. And if they have a problem or an install issue or anything like that, then you're there to kind of smooth over that problem. So that's really how our sessions are structured. And, that's why we don't go back and forth. And, in a general sense, they're 90 minutes, but your mileage may vary. You might have a 2-hour session, or you might have a 1-hour session. It kind of depends on your university, your professor, whatever's going on, right? But the remote session, this is like the canonical session, the one that we will run for the remote courses, right? That are running this fall. So basically they're gonna look like this. And we'll have an expert actually come in and do some of the topic overviews just to generate some cool videos that are more recent. And your role largely for the remote runs is going to be to kind of bounce between lab rooms and make sure everybody's able to practice whatever it was that we demonstrated, and that they all get through it, right? They all get a chance to like make one SQL injection thing happen, or you know, get the first screen of the app up or install Xcode properly, you know, whatever it is. So this is the general structure that I've used in many classrooms, and it's kind of how teaching is done in general. That's usually how people learn. You watch somebody do it, and you kind of try to do it, and they go, oh no, hold your hands like this, and then you do it on your own. It's kind of how you learn martial arts as well. So I think that's like where this originally came from. So to kind of break down the topic overview, I kind of broke this down like, so this topic overview, we're sort of zooming in there. So during the overview, you want to explain and show the technical topic, right? So yeah, this is SQL injection. Let me show you what SQL is. See, I can select from a database. Okay, now let me show you how to write a specially crafted SQL statement. All right, great, you know. Now, earlier when we were doing the do or don't, that's what I mean by students practice. You're really just trying to get them, you're throwing back to them and you're saying, okay, now you practice, you try it, but give them a chance to practice like the smallest, most core thing from the topic overview, right? Like if you're teaching them about how to make a form field, right? Have them make a form field in an app that is not their lab app, it's just an app, right? You make a form field, you show them to make a form field. Something in that general vein. It shouldn't take 2 to 5 minutes for students to do it. It shouldn't be super long time. Like when we talked about which is more memorable, a snippet of text or a discussion, and we thought about it for a minute. That's what I'm talking about. Do something that just gets them active. You'll want to then expand on the topic or the example. This is where you go kind of into like, how does SQL injection work? Why does it work? You know, what is it that causes like SQL to interpret this command this way? See the semicolon, and you know, you go deeper in. Maybe you give a diagram if you need a diagram. Depending on what it is, you know, sometimes you're talking about lifecycle methods. Diagram is really useful there. Sometimes you're not talking about that. You're talking about, you know, Wireshark, and so you need to show install. So you kind of get another like 5 to 10 minute thing, and then you need to have them do something before you get into the weird edges and this is where usually people get into like the technical details, right? They start talking about, well, due to how lists are actually implemented in Python, and they go into a bunch of details. This can be as long as you want, but it should sort of peter out as you're handing them off to the breakout rooms. And so that's why there's no like, you know, number of minutes, right? It's really more, this should be kind of optional. Whoever's paying attention wants that information. That's where you're doing that. So altogether, you know, maximum, this is about like 30 minutes if you did the max number of time. And we want to try to keep it to 20 minutes because people they lose attention after about 15 to 20 minutes. So this is like the breakdown, but it's going to be specific more to your actual class. So whatever your class you're covering. So you'll have to kind of do some adaptation, and your guru will help you with that based on whatever the topic is. There's also kind of some talking about like working the clock, having students code along with you. It's really important when you're doing that you do something like this. Write your answers in Zoom chat, open up Replit and create a thing, fire up Xcode and make a new project, you know, for 2 minutes, right? So say something about the amount of time and what they're doing, where are they doing it? And then, yeah, batch process, that's where you ask students to kind of talk to each other, or you have students type in the chat to kind of process something. So it's basically like, you know, this works in the classroom, but not so much when you're remote. So normally we have you do this script. Because Tech Fellow training's been sort of reorganized so much, like we're not going to make you do this. I just want to show you what a code along script looks like so you can write one of your own. So generally, this is a new gist button. Here's an example. So here's an example of explaining 3 JavaScript lab functions. This is not something you would share with students. It's something for you to script out a demo, basically. So by the end, you want to get to this result. So these are the questions that came up, right? So you want to write out questions. How do you run a function inside of another one? And there's just sort of some notes here, like review function syntax. There's some prompts in here. Facilitator speaks, open up Replit and code along with me, right? Write a function called increment by in the next 60 seconds. Doing this, where you kind of write down the numbers here, will help you to understand how long this whole thing is. 7 to 8 minutes is this example, right? And I only know that because I kind of have the numbers down. Pause for 1 minute. Everyone check to see if your neighbor got their function to work, right? So there's all these like little call outs, facilitator codes and speaks. You don't have to read from this script. You don't want to read from the script. I'm not reading from a script right now. But by writing this out, I was able to see, like, how long do I have to pause? Is it reasonable to pause for a minute and, you know, get people to write an increment by function? And it will help you because I've seen this a lot. New teachers, they want to explain that very simple concept, and then they end up making a presentation that lasts an hour and a half for like form fields, you know, and you want it to stick lower. So writing this up will help you tighten up your lectures. If you find you go over time on your first lecture or two or your first presentation, these scripts really do help you to check yourself. Do I need to cover parameters? Do I need to cover this? Do I need to cover that? You know, and it helps you to get into these like short time frames that you usually have. So there's examples linked here, and there's also examples in the course portal. So I think this is like the old version of it, but there's some examples in the course portal. I think in week 2, it talks about them. So yeah, so just take a moment at some point, look at this code along script and make yourself one for your first lecture so that you get a chance to practice without an audience, basically. So this is like the process, and I use this. I write these up whenever I'm trying to make a presentation. So any questions on facilitation, on the schedule? We didn't do a lot of like discussion in that one. Just pausing to see if anyone has any questions. Cool. So you might have noticed, like, I just talked for the last 10 minutes pretty much straight. I talked pretty fast, but there were probably some points at which I lost you, you know, where you were reading and I was talking and you were not absorbing. It's important when you're talking to usually repeat yourself at least once or twice, because especially if there's a lot of stuff going on the screen. This slide has so many words on it. It has too many words on it. And because I was talking while you were looking at this, you probably missed maybe 5 to 10% of what I said at least. And that was only 10 minutes. So think about you're rambling about a technical topic for like 40 minutes, right? Like you will lose a lot of folks. So, you know, just to kind of give you that mental model. How are students thinking? How are you thinking, right? Okay, so let's talk about pods. Pods are groups, right? Learning is really very social. We don't get excited about things that are you know, about scoring points for a machine that no one's ever going to care about, right? Like, have you ever played a game that's just on your phone and you're never going to show it to anyone? Are you motivated to go for that high score? Not so much. So learning by teaching is a very good thing. We're building ratio. There's always someone in the room that can probably help. And it's real teams for real teamwork, right? Like, these are the most realistic parts of the CodePath class is not only can I write code to solve a problem, but can I build software with another group of people? Or can I hack into a server, you know, or can I hack into this thing without knowing every single thing about computers, right? And so as groups, we can solve problems together far more effectively than we could solve them alone, as long as the groups are small enough, right? And targeted enough. So this is something that I have realized. This is why the world is going towards microservices and things like that. Robust systems are distributed, right? It's sort of a property of a robust system. Single point of failure is bad, right? So, you know, that's why we don't have our gurus just run every single class, right? We have our tech fellows that help our gurus with the whole program, and then you have pod leads. So what you'll do is you'll split students into teams of about 4, and each one will be a leader at a different time. And you will mostly want to talk to the pod leads about how the week went. So lines of communication between pods and tech fellows are super important. This is what allows us as CodePath to scale, though. We could not provide a good experience if you weren't helping us, if our gurus weren't helping us. And your ability to scale yourself to 30 people is really going to depend on, are there leaders already in the class? So you have to find your lieutenants, and you'll find your lieutenants by having everyone have a chance to lead. If you've got a big group project at the end, we'll help you select a leader from everybody who led that will be the best leader for that group project. So we'll help with that whole thing, but that's why we're doing this. That's the goal of pods. It's really to build ratio and things like that. So how does it work? Students are going to be assigned a group. Our ops team is going to handle that for the remote runs. We'll post a leadership rotation so that every student knows which week they're the lead for. Everyone should lead at least once. We need your help to make sure that this happens. There are so many students. You saw how many students have signed up. I will not be able to check that everybody has actually done the leading. I will not be able to check the pods are meeting. So we'll need you to really help make sure that everyone is doing the leading at least one time. The goal, like I said in that last picture, is that leads are escalating your problems. So if your group is struggling with this thing that you just taught and it's just that group, the lead should come to you. So you're going to have to communicate with students that whoever's leading should be in charge of getting help for the group if the group needs it. So that's kind of the way that we scale this whole operation. Leads escalate problems, everybody leads. The last thing that's really important, I talked about this, I touched on it for a second, pods should run stand-ups. Basically, I'll explain stand-ups, but they should run them each day or each day that they're supposed to be working on something, and talk about what their plan is. If they're going to, you know, try to tackle assignment 3 today, writing that down and sending it to the group or sending it to the whole channel. That will help you keep tabs on everyone, because it's a lot of people to run a classroom of like 20 or 30, right? So pods will do the group project at the end. We will probably have to reform them because we don't know who's going to make it all the way to the end, etc. So we'll handle all of that, but that's how group projects are going to work. We'll create pods at the beginning. Everyone will lead. Someone will kind of emerge as like the person who is the best leader in the group, and then they'll do a group project at the end with that person as the lead. Questions on that so far? I think we're going to go about 10 minutes over. I hope that's okay. You can leave if you need to right at 7. Don't worry. So there's some differences for credit versus non-credit. For the big remote run, we'll handle the groups. If you are a 4-credit run, it's y'all's job to do the groups. We don't know until like the day class starts who your students are usually, if you're 4-credit. So talk with your professors and ask them about what their student grouping strategy is. And if they don't have one, get a list of all the students and put them into groups. Talk to us. Our ops team can help you with this and show you like what it looks like. So, but you will have to do it because that's how 4-credit works. So. So the goal for pods is when you're doing the labs, you basically want to send each pod to its own breakout room. So not random breakout rooms, but specific pre-assigned breakout rooms of the same group of people who will see each other every class session and every lab session, and they'll work together on the labs. That's how this works. So you want to, get pod leaders to help you. They'll help you create accountability. They can look at each other's work for other examples. In cybersecurity, ask them not to share flags. You may see some flag sharing, but honestly, it's okay if they share flags. Like it's not going to ruin the sanctity of the course, right? As long as they're able to get through it. Just ask them not to share the actual flags themselves, just the process to get them. If any pods have like an advanced example, sometimes you get this like where 1 or 2 groups are just super advanced, like the top 10 students happen to end up in 2 different groups. Like let those students go nuts and build something really cool. Show it to the rest of the class. Have them show it to the rest of the class. Then ask them to be a tech fellow, right? So we're looking for students to show leadership in our classes. We're not, trying to keep people down, right? So if somebody shows up and they're awesome, like let their pod show also some leadership. That's how we grow. And so pod stand-ups, I talked a little bit about it, like doing stand-ups. Basically, this is something that we do in industry. I've run like a bunch of tech companies by now, like 3 of them, I guess, 4 of them now. I don't even remember. But basically what we do every time that I'm running an engineering team is we have a stand-up channel. It's a Slack channel that's either your class channel or whatever. And in my companies, it's like a channel called Stand Up. And everybody just posts their to-do list for the day, right? And then at the end of the day, they update and they show you what they did. Or sometimes it's the next day. What did you get done yesterday? And what do you intend to do today? And if everybody posts every day, everyone stays very active in the Slack. It's kind of like the first thing you should do when you're starting to work for the day. My experience is that this can really make a Slack culture. And so if you're looking to make a strong classroom culture, a strong Slack culture, having your students post their intentions for the day every day, even if they post stuff about other classes or if they, don't have anything to do that day, they will be active. They'll touch Slack once a day, which will draw them into Slack more, which will draw them into the channels. And that's the social environment for right now. Like that's all we got for now. So drawing them into Slack this year is going to be more important than it was in other years, because there's no hallway that you're going to bump into a CodePath student and hear about that cool internship or whatever, right? Like these things won't happen unless we make them happen. So getting everyone to do a stand-up every day is going to pull people together and get them on the same page. And also, this is a great picture, and I couldn't not include it because it has Legos. So just to recap kind of all of those classroom engagement strategies we talked about. I went over them in the beginning, and just to recheck them. Post it if they're disengaged. Make sure that they're aware of what is the deck. They understand what's coming up. They use the whiteboard, use the discussion system, post what we're doing. Have board students talk less, basically. Get them to lead, make sure that they know what it is that they're supposed to be doing. Provide, short lectures by making code along scripts and plans, right? I showed you that example earlier. If you got a disconnected student or a disconnected pod, have a one-on-four with them. Just get into a room with just them and do some listening. It might be that crazy things are going on in their lives, which is probable. So just knowing what's going on will help you to make sure that you're not totally disconnected from these people, because you can't be in the same room with them. So you need to know what's going on in their lives by listening. Do Slack stand-ups if you can. It really helps people stay and talk and feel like they're in a community rather than just some people who are like in a Slack, I guess, for some reason, And then, yeah, if you've got anxious people, make sure that everybody else is showing that they have problems, that they have errors. Make sure that everybody knows there are troubleshooting guides and walkthroughs of labs, and really just show them that you make mistakes too. Try to make sure that they understand that you don't think you're better than them, basically. And then they'll be able to talk to you about what it is that they need. So yeah, that's it. Oh, and then reading assignments, we've got this new thing called pedagogy.codepath.org where we really wrote down and broke down like how the magic works, right? So spoilers, this is how the magic works. So I wanted you to take a look at this. Please pull this up and just give it a browse. Basically, we have a lot of good information here, stuff like what is it that we're actually trying to do for students. We also have our student journey. I don't know if everybody who has a CodePath student has seen this journey, but this is what we envision that you are doing with CodePath, which is taking a workshop series and the fundamentals, doing 2 or 3 internships. We talk about, doing special topics A or B. That's like cybersecurity, iOS. That's the classes y'all are teaching. So this is the part of the student journey that should help students get the second technical internship. Having mobile dev skills, that's what's going to land them the technical internship too. Or, brushing up and going deeper. That's what's going to land you these internships or full-time roles. So, this is our student journey. There's a bunch of cool stuff in here. It talks about the design and structure of our courses, how we measure quality. This is a really good one. When we think about whether or not a course was run well, this is how we measure it, right? NPS is 80, completion rates are over 90. That's the best course, right? We evaluate along a lot of different frameworks. This is what we're going to look at for your course run. How much completed? Just as a note, we don't count number of people who applied and showed up on day 1. We count number of people who were still in the course after week 3 who got to the end. So that's what I mean by completion, because people have like life circumstances that show up in week 1. So there's all this other stuff like the subjective satisfaction score, the perceived impact to your lives, how they feel. So all of these are how we actually look at the student experience. If you want to look at this, it's very helpful, I think, for understanding why we do what we do and what we're trying to do. And it just kind of talks about what is it that's really critical, right? So yeah. And then also there's this course feedback and analysis. This is what we do at the end. So after you've taught once or twice, we will start asking you to help us make it better. So that's kind of how we do that. And that's sort of talked about in here. So yeah. So there's some reading things. Read about programs design and our quality, just so that you know what we think is good, and that will help. Yeah, and then I think this is the correct one. We're not going to do this homework right now just because there's kind of a lot going on, and I'm not going to check it, but I do, we ask you to do the code along script because it's it's usually very helpful. But yeah, so I just posted a link in the chat for a survey. You just took Facilitator training session 2. Here we go. So that's what you did just now. And if y'all could just rate that, I'll know how. That's how we know we're doing better. So just take 5 minutes, fill that out. I'm here for any questions for anything. Thanks for coming, everyone. And if you came tonight, just as a reminder, you do not have to come tomorrow. So. Thanks for coming. Bye, Nick.
Thank you, Liz. See you tomorrow.
Yeah.
Next time.
See you next time. Thanks, everyone.
Hello.
Hey.
Hi. So this is my first session. And I was looking at the, or should I make this, like, should I try to contact you privately?
Oh,
or?
no, this is fine. Yeah.
Okay. So.
Yeah, so you haven't seen this first part. I think the only thing that you should definitely see, let's see, no, this is all the marketing stuff. No. There are marketing office hours. That's the main key takeaway that I wanted you to see. They might be, no, they're not all gone. So I will drop that in the channel. And yeah, the people who will be at them are Emily and Vic, who are these folks here. They're our marketing and university relations team. So just check them out. And definitely, anytime you see anybody on a LinkedIn, get up on that LinkedIn and friend them, because they're very, very helpful people to know. So.
Okay.
And then I think, I mean, you know, yeah, it's like, why are you here? Oh, here it is. If you take a look at the resources and logistics page, there's like a list of things. The deck's pretty all right as like a list of resources, because everything's changing so fast. It's week 3 is not, like, it's out of date, and so don't worry about the week 3, but you can look through the whole deck and it'll help you get links and things.
Okay. And so with the task tracker,
Oh, yes.
so the homeworks, I'm not sure because it's kind of different for every, like the session 1 through 6 should be completed, or?
They should, this is your first time as a tech fellow?
Yes.
Yeah. We do want you to do the homeworks. Like if I know that some people started late because of chaos. So if you're behind on the lessons, just reach out to your guru and talk to them about that you're behind and you will need some more time and they'll help you get through everything. Generally the dates are in there and we're trying to help you to hit those dates, but we had a really weird run this time and everyone's starting late and stuff. So just communicate. We'll help you out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Mhm. Totally. Yeah. And then, sorry, which class are you in or which course are you teaching?
Mobile app development.
Mobile. Is it Android or iOS?
I believe it's Android.
Oh, okay. So yeah.
Pre-work
So
sorry, for the pre-work we did Android. So yeah.
oh, okay. Yeah. So then Varun is your guru. Have you talked to Varunji?
No.
Okay. He'll be, I think he's back this week. He was teaching at Facebook. But yeah, if you message this cat, hold on. He's uh, here. Sorry, let me find you on Slack, and I'll send you his name. What's your Slack? Ternia. I see you. Okay, cool. So you're looking for so I just messaged you the Slack name of the guru you're looking for.
Okay, I see it. Thank you.
For sure. Let me know if there's anything else I can help out with or if anything's confusing.
All right. Thank you again.
Yeah, have a good one.
Thanks, you too.
All right, and y'all can bounce if you're done filling out the form. I'm just hanging out. So.